If I could turn Justin Fields basically into 6 quality players and get Bryce Young, who I think will be the better player, I'm making that move if I'm the Bears.
I need to preface this video by letting you guys know, despite me feeling very, very strongly about this topic, there's a chance that I could be wrong. And there is a decent chance that this gets clipped in the future and people tweet it out at me and say, hey Mike, remember when you said this? And I acknowledge that. It comes with the territory when you record 1 to 2 videos a day. There's a chance that you might get some of your takes wrong. All I could do is own up to it if I do get it wrong. But I'm sure after I tell you how I feel about this situation, a lot of you guys will agree with me. So before we get to the content, make sure you drop a like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. If you want to see what I'm up to, make sure you're following me on Instagram. And now that we got all of that out of the way, break! Today's video is sponsored by Morgan & Morgan, whose sole purpose is to simplify the process of injury law. Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm. They have over 100 offices nationwide and over 800 lawyers. With over $15 billion recovered for their clients, Morgan & Morgan has a proven track record of fighting to get you full and fair compensation. Submitting an injury claim with Morgan & Morgan is more like using an app than hiring a lawyer, because we know how complicated it could be to go through that entire process. Think of submitting a claim to Morgan & Morgan as more like ordering from your favorite food delivery app than actually going through the painful process of finding a lawyer. With Morgan & Morgan, you can submit a claim without ever needing to leave the couch, which means in 8 clicks or less, you can submit a claim to Morgan & Morgan. So if you're ever injured or in an accident, you can check out Morgan & Morgan. You can submit a claim in 8 clicks or less without having to leave your couch. For more information, you can go to forthepeople.com/microphone to submit your claim. And thank you, Morgan & Morgan, for today's sponsorship. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? If you go back on this channel about 2 years ago, I had a ton of fun, probably the most fun I've ever had covering any type of draft in my entire career. Although I must admit, this was the very first big draft of my YouTube career on Microphone. The 2021 NFL draft was loaded with talent, and at this point, the early returns look fairly promising. Trevor Lawrence definitely looks like a franchise QB with limitless potential. The sky's the limit for this guy. Zach Wilson, Trey Lance is a very interesting story, and his future is already seeming to be a little uncertain. How are the 49ers going to handle that situation? Kyle Pitts is, but despite all that, he's already been named to a Pro Bowl. Jamar Chase's talent was so good that it took the Cincinnati Bengals to a Super Bowl in his rookie year. Jalen Waddle's a fantastic complementary piece to Tyreek Hill. Penei Sewell already made it to a Pro Bowl. You guys already get my point. Well, before the selections of Mac Jones and Elijah Vera Tucker and Rashawn Slater and Micah Parsons was a pick that we talk about a lot on this channel. Actually, the storyline of this particular pick has always been very fascinating to me. During the time of the 2021 NFL draft, a lot of mock drafts had the Denver Broncos selecting Justin Fields with the 9th overall pick in the NFL draft. The reason being, well, these dudes really needed a quarterback. I mean, they have not had stability at the QB position since Peyton Manning, if we're being honest. Brock Osweiler looked promising for a small window of time, and I'm talking about first stint Brock Osweiler, not second stint. And the Dallas Cowboys were supposed to take Patrick Surtain II with the 10th overall pick. Now, the Broncos shook up the draft when they selected Patrick Surtain II with the 9th overall pick. This caused the Dallas Cowboys to trade away their pick to the Philadelphia Eagles, who leapfrogged in front of the New York Giants, who had the 11th overall pick, to select Devontae Smith, player that the Giants were clearly trying to target because they selected Kadarius Toney 10 picks later. Honestly, both of those wide receivers ended up making it to the Super Bowl this past year, which is kind of cool if you think about it. And the Cowboys would drop down to the 12th overall pick and select Micah Parsons. Why am I saying this? Well, the Chicago Bears would shock everyone when they would trade up to the 11th pick in the NFL draft and select Justin Fields. And to be honest, in Justin Fields' rookie season, it seemed like the Bears just threw this young man out to the wolves. I mean, mean, with respect, his head coach, Matt Nagy, seemed fairly underqualified to handle the talent that was Justin Fields. And in year 2, when Matt Eberflus came in, there was even more concerns about Justin Fields. I even said at the beginning of the season, I could see a world where Justin Fields fails because, well, there isn't really anyone for him to throw the football to. And this is a team that's clearly rebuilding. Bear in mind, the Chicago Bears came into the season having traded away Khalil Mack, having shed a ton of salary, and even in the middle of the season, they traded away Robert Quinn. And that's even before we mention the fact that they traded away their overall best player, Roquan Smith. So this is clearly a team that wasn't trying to be competitive at all. It makes a lot of sense. You have a young QB on a rookie scale contract. Doesn't seem like you could be competitive at all this year. You might as well try to accumulate as much salary cap space for this upcoming offseason. Fortunately for the Chicago Bears, the Houston Texans fumbled the opportunity to get the #1 overall pick in the NFL draft, which is really going to screw them over, by the way, because now they might have to pony up a decent amount of assets to get the #1 overall pick from the Chicago Bears. But here's the problem. The Chicago Bears have the #1 overall pick in the 2023 NFL draft, and they clearly have a franchise QB. I mean, I don't know. Let me know in the comment section. Do you think Justin Fields is a franchise caliber QB? Considering the fact that he's put up incredible highlights this year by just using his feet alone and was able to throw 17 touchdowns despite not necessarily having someone to throw the football to, I would say that he definitely does have the makings of being a franchise QB. The thing is, there are some other numbers about Justin Fields that aren't really exciting. One is his completion percentage, both in his rookie season and his sophomore season. It's either been 59% his rookie season or 60% this past season. Also, if you look at his statistics, he was sacked 55 times last year. He still threw 17 touchdowns to 11 interceptions, and that's before we mention the fact that Justin Fields was able to rush for 1,143 yards and 8 touchdowns. So there's a legitimate argument here. A lot of people are actually beginning to think that Chicago Bears might trade away Justin Fields and draft a quarterback this year. Man, this is very eerily reminiscent of a situation. A player that is drafted around the 10th pick, who's supposed to be the future of this team, who is highly touted coming out of college, yet there is an undersized quarterback who has won a Heisman that is projected to be the #1 overall pick in this upcoming NFL draft that's a quarterback. And the team that holds the #1 overall pick is fairly tempted to select this young man. Where have I seen this story before? How about 4 years ago, the 2019 NFL draft? The Arizona Cardinals drafted Josh Rosen with the 10th overall pick in the 2018 NFL draft. But Josh Rosen didn't necessarily look so good in that lone year under Steve Wilkes. Granted, he was kind of thrown into the fire that year as well. He had Larry Fitzgerald, which is solid, and he played so horribly that the Arizona Cardinals were able to get the #1 overall pick in the 2019 NFL draft. They went ahead and fired Steve Wilkes after a year, and they brought in the offensive-minded guru Cliff Kingsbury, who had interviews where he was literally sucking off Kyler Murray. Look at this.
Kyler is, he's a freak, man. Purdy's a really good young player, and he's going to be a tremendous player, but Kyler is a freak, and I've followed him since he was a sophomore in high school, and just think the world of him and what he can do on a football field. And I've never seen one better in high school, and he's starting to show it now at the college level. And I don't have enough good things to say about him. He's phenomenal.
So at that point, the writing was on the wall. The Arizona Cardinals would then trade Josh Rosen to the Miami Dolphins, and they would select Kyler Murray. The interesting part about this entire situation is, of course, Josh Rosen is a significantly different quarterback than Justin Fields was. They were in very similar situations, but I would say Josh Rosen performed way worse than Justin Fields did. He had a 55% completion percentage for 2,278 passing yards, 11 touchdowns, and 14 interceptions. But despite this, you're seeing many reports that suggest that the Chicago Bears will potentially trade Justin Fields. This is a video I've wanted to make for some time, but when I did the research, I didn't really find a lot of people saying this. It was just a narrative that was drummed up about a month ago when we found out that the Bears got the #1 overall pick. We saw tweets like this: the Bears have such a bad offense. We need a QB who can score touchdowns. Justin Fields is 11th in total total TDs for a QB with one of the worst supporting casts in the league, but not like that. That's the argument for Justin Fields. Now, what about the argument against? At that time, the only article that I was able to find suggesting that the Bears should trade Justin Fields was this.
I would trade Justin Fields, and I'm taking nothing away from him, maybe a top 10 quarterback. If you could get at least a first and a third round pick, which I believe you can, because so many teams need a quarterback, to draft Bryce Young, who I think is going to be a better quarterback than Justin Fields. And when I do that and get at least a first and a third round pick, I'm resetting Bryce Young's rookie contract, and I'm going to be able to get at least 4 starting caliber players.
Mike Tannenbaum straight up thinks that the Bears should trade Justin Fields. The argument makes sense here. When you do this, you're able to get a first round pick back, a third round pick, and you get to start all over on a rookie scale contract and still have a ton of salary cap to surround this rookie QB with a ton of assets. The thing is, from a logical X's and O's standpoint, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, this tweet says it all. Justin Fields had a rookie left tackle, the worst starting center in the league, and a revolving door at every offensive line position. 2 wide receivers for a good chunk of the season were Dante Pettis and Equanimeous St. Brown. Talking heads, Bears should bring in a 5'11", 190-pound rookie QB instead of fixing all of that. It's so crazy how many parallels there are to the 2019 NFL draft here. I mean, from the fact that a quarterback was recently drafted by the Chicago Bears, all the way to the fact that Bryce Young has been getting so many comparisons to Kyler Murray. They're both like 5'11". They're both relatively small. They both have won Heisman trophies. It's just interesting that there are this many parallels. Now, the most recent report we're getting is from a guy that I used to vouch for. I don't know if I necessarily vouch for him as much nowadays, no disrespect. It's just, I've been following him for a while. He's missed on some of his insider info recently. Maybe he's right here, and that's Jason La Canfora. So according to Jason La Canfora, more than one NFL general manager came away from the Senior Bowl fairly convinced that Justin Fields will be dealt. So here's the thing. I could totally understand the logic behind trading Justin Fields, although I don't necessarily back it. I don't think the body of work that Justin Fields put forward is necessarily a fair way to grade him. He showed moments of being a truly special quarterback, although the statistics don't indicate as such. I could see a world where Justin Fields is the better QB out of any quarterback in this upcoming NFL draft. At the same time, this upcoming NFL draft for me is very similar to the 2017 NFL draft, where there isn't a clear-cut amazing QB. I know a lot of people love Bryce Young, but to move on from a mobile QB that is 6'3" and 230 pounds that has durability in Justin Fields for Bryce Young, I don't know. I mean, if this was a draft where there was a Trevor Lawrence type at the top of the draft, or if this was next year's NFL draft, I would get it, where the quarterback depth is significantly higher. But in this case, and this is no disrespect to Bryce Young, I wouldn't really feel tempted to move on from Justin Fields to bring in Bryce Young. But that's just me. Personally, I think this is a gigantic smokescreen to try to drive up the price for the Chicago Bears' #1 overall pick. And here's the crazy part. We don't even know who the clear-cut #1 overall pick would be. Who would you be trading up to the #1 pick for? Would it be Anthony Richardson? Would it be Will Levis? Will it be Bryce Young? I don't think it's going to be CJ Stroud, but he's definitely a possibility, especially when you consider the fact that Bryce Young measured in at 5'10" and a half, according to Todd McShay. According to McShay, he also said, if I'm a GM, I'm scared to death of drafting him. I don't want this to seem like a Bryce Young hate fest. Honestly, I mean, the Kyler Murray comparisons make a lot of sense. There's a huge question about his long-term durability in the NFL. That's a reasonable thing to be worried about. So the question is, who would even the #1 overall pick be? Well, we also have another angle to this, because today, Adam Schefter came out and said what we already have been anticipating for a few days. The Chicago Bears are just trying to drive up the price of this pick. According to Schefter, the Bears already have been approached by multiple teams about trading the draft's #1 overall pick, and Chicago is said to be leaning toward moving the pick. So the #1 pick now looks like it's for sale. Dude, what do you mean now looks like it was for sale? I thought it was always for sale, to be honest. Field Yates followed up with this tweet saying the Bears are in a unique spot because there is a credible case right now for several teams in the top 10 to consider a jump, large or small, up the board for a QB. The Texans at number 2, the Colts at number 4, the Raiders at number 7, the Falcons at number 8, and the Panthers at the 9th pick. Personally, it's very difficult to decide what anyone would do in this situation. The reason why I compare this NFL draft to the 2017 NFL draft was leading up to that NFL draft, in my mind, there was only one clear-cut stud of a quarterback that I obviously thought was going to succeed in the NFL, and that was Deshaun Watson. I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't know who the hell Patrick Mahomes was. I just knew he was a superstar during the pre-draft process, but I didn't really follow him closely at Texas Tech. And I was very shocked when the Kansas City Chiefs traded all the way up to draft him, and it ended up working out wonders. Is Anthony Richardson that type of prospect? Well, he's being hyped up to be as such, but Patrick Mahomes was a little bit more of a secret than Anthony Richardson is or Will Levis is. I could see any of these quarterbacks doing well. I wouldn't be surprised if this will be a strong quarterback class when it's all said and done. It doesn't necessarily have the hype that the 2021 QB class did, but it's not nearly as weak as last year's was. And it's probably not going to be as strong or hyped as next year's will be. We all know that the Houston Texans are really doing whatever it takes to get that number 1 overall pick. Personally, if I was in their situation, I would just sit out this year and wait until next NFL draft, where you're going to have so many good quarterback prospects. I mean, I know we were saying this last year, but you need to understand, this year is definitely an upgrade in terms of QB talent over last year's NFL draft, but next year's quarterback class is truly special. Obviously, you're not in a situation where we're going to only see one quarterback selected in the first round like we did last year. You're definitely going to see like 4 QBs off the board potentially in the first round this year alone. But next year, you have players like Caleb Williams coming out who could potentially declare. But it's not just Caleb Williams, who already looks like he's likely the first overall pick in the 2023 NFL draft. You have Drake May, you have Shedeur Sanders, you have Jaden Daniels and Quinn Ewers, you have Michael Pratt and Spencer Rattler. That's before we get to like the more riskier QB prospects. I mean, yeah, I know you probably heard Spencer Rattler's name and said, yuck, but that's the 7th highest ranked QB prospect in this draft, to give you an idea. So I don't know. I think this is a gigantic smokescreen. I would be very shocked if they did it. I don't think the Chicago Bears are nearly in the position that the Cardinals were in with Josh Rosen, but they could really go either way here. So let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think is the most likely thing to happen? Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike. I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.